I was on my knees scrubbing the bathroom floor when my son, Jason, walked in. He didn't say hello. He didn't acknowledge me at all. He stepped over my legs like I was a piece of broken furniture left in the hallway, something old, something forgotten, something that didn't deserve the courtesy of a detour. The bathroom tiles were cold beneath my palms, and the sharp scent of ammonia stung my eyes. I dipped my brush back into the soapy water and watched the suds swirl, catching fragments of fluorescent light. Jason stood at the sink, adjusting his tie in the mirror. It was silk, probably Italian, the kind that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month. His cufflinks gleamed. His shoes were polished to a mirror finish. He looked successful, polished, important. He looked nothing like the boy I had raised. "Dad," he said, his voice casual, almost bored. He still didn't look at me. "Make sure you clean the guest room today. Lisa has friends coming over. We don't want them seeing your old junk lying around." By junk, he meant my drafting table. The scarred wooden surface where I had spent 40 years designing bridges, buildings, and the infrastructure of entire neighborhoods. The table where I had taught him to hold a pencil, to sketch his first house, to dream in straight lines and careful angles. That table had history. It had soul. But to Jason, it was clutter. "I'll move it to the garage," I said softly. My voice sounded older than I remembered it being. My knees cracked like brittle wood as I stood up, bones protesting the decades of wear. I was 71 years old. My body was tired, joints stiff, muscles weak, but my mind was still sharp. Sharper, perhaps, than it had ever been. Then Lisa walked in. She carried a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice in one manicured hand, her nails painted the color of dried blood. She looked at me with cold, calculating eyes, the kind that measured worth in dollar signs and social standing. "Actually, Robert," she said, never using the word dad, never offering even that small gesture of family, "the garage is full. And honestly, this arrangement isn't working anymore." I turned to face her. There was no warmth in her expression, no empathy. Just the hard, polished veneer of someone who had learned to smile while twisting the knife. "You're costing us too much money," she continued, as if reading from a spreadsheet. "The electricity. The food. The water bills. We can't keep supporting dead weight." Dead weight. Those two words hit me harder than any physical blow ever had. They echoed in the small bathroom, bouncing off the tiles, settling into my chest like stones. I had been called many things in my life: demanding, perfectionist, stubborn, but never useless. Never a burden. Jason turned away from the mirror and looked at me for the first time that morning. His eyes were hard, empty of the love I had poured into him for decades. "She's right, Dad," he said, his tone matter-of-fact, businesslike. "Business is tough right now. We're stretched thin. We can't afford to carry a freeloader. If you want to stay here, you need to contribute. You need to pay rent. $2,500 a month." I stared at my son. I searched his face for some flicker of the boy I had raised alone after his mother died, the boy who used to climb into my lap after nightmares, who had cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend broke his heart, who had hugged me tight at his college graduation and whispered, "I couldn't have done it without you, Dad." But that boy was gone. Standing in front of me was a stranger in an expensive suit, a man who had learned to value bank accounts over bonds, portfolios over people. $2,500, I whispered, letting the number hang in the air between us. To live in the basement of the house I helped you buy. The down payment had been my gift to him and Lisa on their wedding day. I had handed over a check that represented years of careful savings, decades of sacrifice. I had done it with joy, with pride, believing I was helping my son build a foundation for his future. That was a gift. Jason snapped, his face flushing with anger. Don't throw that in my face now. You're retired, Dad. You have nothing. You don't work. You don't contribute. If you can't pay by Friday, you need to leave. We have a reputation to maintain. Lisa's friends, my colleagues, they can't see us housing charity cases. Charity case. Dead weight. Freeloader. The words piled up like debris from a collapsed building, each one another piece of rubble burying the relationship I thought we had. I didn't get angry. I didn't scream or argue or beg. Something inside me had shifted, settled into a cold, quiet clarity. I smiled, a small, sad smile that barely touched my lips. Okay, I said simply. I'll leave today. They both laughed. It was a sharp, dismissive sound, the kind of laughter reserved for jokes that weren't funny and people who weren't serious. Don't be dramatic, Robert, Lisa said, rolling her eyes as she sipped her juice. You'll be back, begging us for dinner in 2 days. You have nowhere else to go. Jason smirked, already turning back to the mirror to check his hair one final time. They had dismissed me completely, written me off as a powerless old man whose threats were empty and whose options were non-existent. They were wrong. I went to my room, a cramped corner of the basement with a single window near the ceiling that let in thin, gray light. I packed one small duffel bag. I took 2 shirts, a pair of pants, socks, underwear. I carefully wrapped the framed photograph of my late wife, Margaret, her smile frozen in time, forever young, forever loving. I left behind the furniture they had relegated to the basement, the tools I had used to fix their leaking pipes and patch their roof for free, the remnants of a life I had tried to graft onto theirs. I walked up the basement stairs for the last time, through the kitchen where I had cooked meals they rarely thanked me for, past the living room where I had sat alone during family movie nights because there wasn't enough room on the couch. I walked out the front door and didn't look back. The morning air was cool, crisp with the promise of autumn. I walked to the bus stop 3 blocks away, my bag light on my shoulder, my heart heavy in my chest. I didn't call a taxi. I wanted the time to think, to feel the pavement beneath my feet, to let the weight of what had just happened settle into understanding. The bus ride downtown was quiet. I sat near the back, watching the city roll past the smudged windows, coffee shops opening, joggers on their morning routes, the ordinary rhythm of lives being lived. When the bus stopped at 5th and Main, I stepped off and stood at the base of the tallest skyscraper in the city. The Sterling Tower. 73 floors of steel and glass, rising into the sky like a monument to ambition and engineering. The morning sun reflected off its mirrored surface, turning it into a blade of light cutting through the skyline. I walked through the revolving doors into the marble lobby, my worn shoes squeaking slightly on the polished floor. The security guard at the front desk looked up from his computer screen. He saw my old canvas jacket, my scuffed shoes, my duffel bag, and his expression hardened. Deliveries are in the back, old man, he said, jerking his thumb toward a service corridor. I stopped in front of his desk and met his eyes. I'm not here to make a delivery, I said quietly. Call Charles Henderson on the top floor. Tell him the architect is home. The guard laughed, a short, barking sound full of disbelief. Sure, buddy. And I'm the King of England. But there was something in my voice, something in the way I stood, that made him hesitate. Maybe it was the confidence. Maybe it was the calm. He picked up the phone, still smirking, and dialed. Yeah, Charles, sorry to bother you, but there's some old guy down here claiming to be, what did you say? The architect? He paused, and the smirk began to fade. Yeah, wait, what? You're, okay. Yes, sir. He hung up the phone slowly, his face pale. 2 minutes later, the executive elevator doors opened, and Charles Henderson, CEO of Sterling Global Infrastructure, a man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar contracts, came running out, his tie slightly askew, his face flushed. Mr. Sterling. Charles gasped, stopping short and almost tripping over his own feet. Sir, we didn't know you were coming. We would have sent the limousine. We would have prepared. The security guard's jaw actually dropped. His eyes darted from the name etched into the marble wall, Sterling Global Infrastructure, to me, standing in front of him in a jacket with a frayed collar. It's fine, Charles, I said, my voice steady. I just need the keys to the penthouse. And I'll need my suits brought up. I'm coming back to work. Charles nodded frantically, already pulling out his phone to make calls. Of course, sir. Right away. Welcome back. I walked past the security guard, who stood frozen, and stepped into the private elevator. As the doors closed, I caught his reflection in the polished brass, mouth still open, disbelief written across his face. You see, I never told my son the truth. When I retired 5 years ago, I didn't stop because I was old or tired or incapable. I stepped back because I wanted to see if Jason could build a life on his own merit, without my money smoothing every rough edge, without my name opening every door. I wanted to know if he would love me, truly love me, when I had nothing to offer but myself. I had lived like a poor man, a dependent, a burden. I wore old clothes, took the bus, accepted their condescension and cruelty. I scrubbed their floors and fixed their faucets and ate leftovers in the basement. And now I had my answer. 3 weeks passed. I lived in the penthouse suite on the 73rd floor, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city I had helped build. I wore Italian suits again, attended board meetings, reviewed contracts. My empire had continued without me, managed by capable hands, but it welcomed me back like a king returning from exile. Yet my heart was heavy. Every evening, I stood at those windows and looked out at the lights below, and I felt the hollow ache of a father who had lost his son. Then, the day came. I was reviewing the week schedule when Charles entered my office, a folder in his hands. Sir, we have the final pitches for the new bridge contract today, he said. 3 firms are competing. Who's on the list? I asked. Donovan and Associates, Cityscape Engineers, and a small firm called Apex Design. He paused, glancing at the file. Apex is struggling, sir. If they don't win this contract, they'll go bankrupt within the month. The owner is a man named Jason Sterling. I looked up slowly. My son. Yes, sir. I thought you should know. I leaned back in my leather chair, fingers steepled beneath my chin. Let them in. But don't tell them I'm here. The conference room was on the 65th floor, all glass and chrome, with a view of the river cutting through the city like a silver ribbon. I sat in a high-backed leather chair at the head of the table, turned away, facing the windows. My reflection was a ghost in the glass. I heard the door open. I heard footsteps, nervous, quick. "Thank you for seeing us," Jason's voice said. It was strained, tight with desperation. "I know our firm is small, but we have a vision. My wife, Lisa, has designed something modern, something that will redefine the city's skyline." "Present your idea," Charles said from across the table. I listened as Jason fumbled through his pitch, his words rehearsed but hollow. I listened as Lisa threw around architectural jargon she barely understood. I watched their reflection in the window as they unveiled their design, a bridge with sleek lines and dramatic curves, aesthetically bold but structurally weak. "The support beams here," Charles said, his voice skeptical, tapping the blueprint, "they're too narrow. The load calculations don't support the traffic projections. This bridge would be dangerous." "Oh, don't worry about the math," Jason said quickly, dismissively. "We can fix the numbers later. Look at the style. Look at the vision. This is what the city needs, something daring, something modern." I couldn't stay silent anymore. "Math is not something you worry about later, Jason," I said. My voice cut through the room like steel. The room went deadly silent. "Excuse me?" Jason asked, his voice uncertain. "Who is that?" I spun the chair around slowly, deliberately. Jason's laser pointer clattered to the floor. Lisa's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. They stared at me, their dead-weight father, sitting at the head of the table in a $5,000 suit, my hands folded calmly in front of me. "Dad?" Jason whispered. His face had gone pale. What are you doing here? Did they hire you as a consultant or something?" "I own the building, Jason," I said coldly. "I own this company. I own the bank that holds the mortgage on your house. I am Sterling." "That's impossible," Lisa said, shaking her head, her voice trembling. "You scrubbed our toilets. You lived in our basement. You had nothing." "I took care of my family," I said, each word measured, precise. "Because that is what a father does. I wanted to see if you would take care of me when I had nothing to offer but myself. You failed." I stood and picked up their proposal, flipping through the pages with deliberate slowness. Then I tossed the entire file across the table. It landed at Jason's feet with a slap. "This design is garbage," I said. "If we built this, people would die. You're not just greedy, Jason. You're incompetent. Dad, please." Jason stepped forward, sweat beading on his forehead. "We didn't know. If we had known it was you, we never would have." "That is exactly the problem," I interrupted. "You treated me like trash because you thought I was poor. That shows me who you really are." "We're going to lose everything," Lisa said, tears streaming down her face, black mascara running in streaks. "Please, Robert. We're family." I looked at her, this woman who had called me dead weight, who had demanded rent, who had looked at me with contempt. "Family supports each other," I said, repeating her own words back to her. "But I can't support dead weight. Isn't that right?" Jason fell to his knees. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." "I know you are," I said quietly. "You're sorry you got caught." I turned to the security team standing by the door. "Show them out. And blacklist Apex Design. Make sure no one in this city hires them. I don't want unsafe buildings in my town." They were dragged out, screaming my name, their voices echoing down the marble hallway. I stood there, alone in the conference room, and I felt no joy. No satisfaction. Only the deep, aching grief of a father who had buried his son long before death ever came. 6 months later, I was being driven through the industrial district when I saw a construction site. I told my driver to slow down. There, among the workers in yellow vests and hard hats, I saw a man carrying bags of cement. He was thin, his shoulders bowed under the weight, his face lined with exhaustion. It was Jason. He had lost the business. He had lost the house. Lisa had left him the moment the money dried up, filing for divorce and taking what little remained. Now he worked with his hands, earning minimum wage, learning what it meant to struggle. He looked up and saw my car. Our eyes met through the tinted window. He didn't run over. He didn't shout or beg. He just stopped, straightened his back, and nodded, a single, humble, respectful nod. Then he went back to work. I watched him for a long moment, this stranger who wore my son's face. Then I picked up the phone and called my assistant. "Keep an eye on him," I said. "Let him struggle. Let him learn what it means to earn $1, to build something with his own hands. If he's still working this hard in a year, if he shows real growth, real humility, maybe, just maybe, we offer him a job as a foreman. But not a day sooner." I hung up and told the driver to move on. I couldn't buy Jason respect. I couldn't hand him character on a silver platter. He had to build it himself, brick by brick, just as I had built everything I owned. And maybe one day, maybe, he would finally be a man worthy of the name Sterling. But that day was not today. I am Robert Sterling. I am 71 years old. I built an empire from blueprints and sweat. I raised a son alone. I loved deeply, lost greatly, and learned the hardest lesson a father can learn: you cannot force someone to see your worth. But you can walk away. And sometimes, that's the only power you have left.